In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I've helped pastors avoid a huge mistake that was unknowingly sabotaging their church brand. Most pastors think they need a catchy name and a trendy logo in order to grow their church. And this is true if you're just trying to draw a crowd. But there's another approach that doesn't start with the logo, and churches are using it to get clarity on the foundational pillars of their brand so that their visuals actually become a part of their ministry and discipleship efforts rather than being a time-consuming add-on. I know this because I've spent the last 8 years working with some of the largest Christian ministries and dozens of churches to help them build timeless brands that put Christ first. And so in this video, I'm going to share the 3-part framework that I use to help churches lay the groundwork for a brand that doesn't just bring in new visitors, but prepares them to encounter the gospel. So there's a huge mistake that I see pastors making, and that mistake is a one-dimensional approach to branding. A lot of pastors will rebrand without a clear why. They'll pick a catchy name, they'll hire out a trendy logo, and they'll slap it on their coffee cups and their LED walls. But the consequences of this is that the congregation just doesn't buy it. You struggle to connect with visitors and community members, and it feels inauthentic. After 12 to 24 months of doing this, you'll feel like you're just spinning your wheels, you're back at square one, and you've burned time, money, and sometimes even trust. So there are a couple of perfectly good reasons that this happens. The first one is that symbols only work when they stand for something deeper. And your logo is a symbol. Without biblical substance and a connection to your church's identity and mission, well, your logos and colors don't say a whole lot. The second reason that one-dimensional rebrand doesn't work is that attraction isn't the same thing as discipleship. And you know this. No one's inviting their friends or their neighbors to church and saying, hey, come to church with me. Our logo is amazing. Just like with your coffee or the quality of your worship music, these things are nice to do excellently and well, but at the end of the day, they're not the substance. So if your goal is to win people to Christ, you want your branding to serve discipleship, not just a vibe. So that might sound great, but how do you actually avoid a one-dimensional rebrand? Well, there are 3 things that every brand, whether it's a church or a business, needs in order to have something that goes deeper than just the surface level. These 3 things are your mission, your tagline, and your name. I call these your 3 purpose pillars. And over the years, I've found that if your church doesn't have these 3 things crystal clear, it will always struggle to connect, both with your congregation and your community. But when they align, something important changes. When you have a church brand built on really solid purpose pillars, you go from being a place that people just attend to somewhere they actually belong. Your branding starts to do more than identify you. It actually helps you make disciples. And a congregation with skin in the game is always going to be more effective at sharing the mission and inviting friends than a congregation that just shows up every week and doesn't have that buy-in. So I'll explain a little bit more about those 3 purpose pillars, but make sure you stay until the end of the video where I'll actually apply them to a real church. The first pillar of every church brand is the mission statement. And mission statements aren't complicated, but they're critical to get right, and I see so many pastors doing them completely wrong. Basically, your mission statement should be a localized version of the Great Commission. God has a global mission, and the capital C Church is trying to accomplish that. But what is the local expression of that mission for your city and for your people? If you can answer that question, you've got 90% of what you need for a really effective, memorable mission statement. As a side note here, this is more about your external mission statement. You can always expand it later for internal use. But try to keep this mission statement short, 1 to 2 sentences, 25 words max. Some quick tips on the mission statement is use biblical but not boring language. Instead of take the gospel to every nation, try something more like push the gospel into every corner of creation. One more thing I'll say about mission statements, avoid the word salad mission statement. A bad example of this is something like, we exist to prepare people to reach and empower others locally and globally to share God's love and proclaim His word. Don't do that, please. I can't stress this enough. Every church brand needs a tagline. And this is the second in the 3 purpose pillars. The reality is most people will never remember your mission statement, no matter how many times you repeat it. The idea with the tagline is to give them a bite-sized, condensed version of the mission statement that will stick with them in everyday life. So the way I like to approach developing a tagline for a church brand, the way I've found to be the most effective, is to shoot for 3 to 7 words and have it be a condensed, distilled version of your mission statement. So for example, if your mission statement is something like, we exist to encourage people to believe the gospel, behold God in his word, and become more like Christ, then you would take that and condense it to believe, behold, become. 3 words. Research shows that people can only hold about 7 pieces of information in their head at one time. So if you want your tagline to be on the tips of people's tongues, used in conversation in everyday life, and ringing around in their head as they go to sleep at night, then you want it to be as short as humanly possible. Okay, let's talk about the name of your church. This is purpose pillar number 3. Do you change the name of the church or do you keep it? I'm going to cut to the chase here. In most cases, I recommend keeping the name of your church the same. There are some good reasons that you might want to change it, which I'll get into in a second. But for now, here's why you should keep the name of your church, even if you're rebranding. The first reason is familiarity and member buy-in. It's a lot easier to convince people to go along with a small change than a big one. The other benefit of keeping the name of your church the same is that even if there are old logos, old merch that you've printed, old signage out there in the world, you still have brand continuity and recognition being built up because the name is the same, even if the logo might be different. But there are some good reasons to change the name of the church, so I'm going to go over this quickly. Maybe you're planting a new church and the name doesn't exist yet. Maybe you're easily confused with another church because you have similar names. Maybe there's been a denominational shift and you're no longer part of one denomination. The last reason to change the name of your church is if it's really hard to remember or say and doesn't roll off the tongue. Now, this doesn't mean that you completely scrap what you had before and update to something completely different. It could be that you just refine it a little bit. Reorder the words for a better flow. Muskogee First Baptist Church could become First Baptist Muskogee. Or Wichita First Church of the Nazarene could become Wichita First Church in general uses, and then keep the full name of the church on formal documents. Let me show you how the 3 purpose pillars framework comes together with a real example. West Oaks Baptist Church is about 30 years old. They had a new pastor come in about a couple of years ago, and they're averaging 200-ish on a Sunday morning. So the vision that this pastor is trying to cast involves focusing on local families and business owners. So for their mission statement, we would start with the idea of the Great Commission. Jesus commanded us to go into all the world, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, making disciples of all the nations. But there's a local expression of that mission that applies just to West Oaks First Baptist Church. Here's what a draft of their mission statement could look like. We welcome neighbors, work patiently, and worship loudly until our city becomes a bastion of Christ's kingdom. So here we're using creative but biblical language with an optimistic tone and a clear focus. Next, the church is going to need a tagline, so let's just take the mission statement and condense it down. Remember, this is the distilled version of your mission statement that makes it memorable and sticky. So a normal version of the tagline could be something like, welcome neighbors, work patiently, and worship loudly. And you can condense it further to just 3 words: welcome, work, and worship. Now you have the 3 W's that become part of the culture of West Oaks First Baptist Church. So the last of the 3 purpose pillars is the church name. And for West Oaks First Baptist Church, I wouldn't recommend any major changes. The name is accurate to who they are, it doesn't contradict their mission, and there are no other churches around them that have similar names, which could be confusing. But the church is a little bit hard to use in conversation and doesn't roll off the tongue, so let's improve the flow. Instead of West Oaks First Baptist Church, we can shorten it to First Baptist West Oaks. So with these 3 purpose pillars set up and in place, First Baptist West Oaks is ready to design a visual brand that becomes a discipleship and evangelism tool, not just a vibe. And the best part is, they won't need to rebrand again in a few years because their brand is already built on a solid foundation and has a clear why behind it. And aligning these 3 purpose pillars for your church sets you up now to avoid the wasted time and effort of a one-dimensional rebrand. Stop being a place where people just attend and start being a place where they belong. So if you want to join the fight against one-dimensional church rebrands, then click the link in the description of this video, and you'll be taken to a page that explains more about my full process. If you're interested, we can talk more about clarifying the 3 purpose pillars for your church and building a visual brand around them. so that you can stop chasing trends and start bringing even more people to Christ. I only help a few churches per month, so click the link now and I'll see you there.